Sheila, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. With me today is a woman whose personal journey through high conflict divorce didn't just change her life, but helped change the law. She is a high conflict divorce strategist, a domestic violence advocate, and the co founder of Being There, Got Out. As usual, we aim to educate, motivate, and inspire you. So grab your warm drinks and let's get the ball rolling. Hello, Lisa, and welcome to Podcast with Sheila.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you today. Pardon me. Before the advocacy work and legal wins, people see today, you were once walking into court alone, probably afraid, and all of that. What was that season like for you, and what kept you going?
Ugh, well, it was years and years, but I kind of had a heads up beforehand because my divorce took a year and cost a lot of money. And my lawyer was so smart. And he just said, he's not going to comply with your agreement and you're going to be by yourself in court because you're not going to be able to afford me anymore. So on that day, he said, here are some ideas of what you need to do to basically start establishing a paper trail. And when you go back, you're going to be on your own and I'll be here if you need me in the background, but you're not going to be able to afford me because if you keep using me, your ex is going to financially decimate you. So start preparing. So that was what I started doing. And I took about a year and 9 months before I went back as a pro se or self-represented litigant. So it was scary, but there was a lot of practice and there was about 100 court appearances over 7.5 years. So it became less scary and more just frustrating. Um, the whole time I definitely had support. My dad was super helpful. I would go to his office and make my big mess and spread out papers and read my beautiful speeches to him, and he would listen and say, "Okay, you're talking too fast. Write the word pause. Think about this, think about that," and then he would proofread some of the things that I wrote. So that was really, really helpful. And he's an attorney. He's not a family lawyer and he's not a litigator. He does him and my uncle, his twin brother, do patents and trademarks. And so they were like, we don't know anything about this, but we can help you with, or my dad in particular said, I could help you just learn to stay calm because court is a place where you need to be unemotional as possible and as brief as possible. So that was really, really helpful.
It looks like you had some massive support and that helped you through it. But my question is, divorce is messy. And even for anybody to decide to go that direction, it takes a lot of courage on both ends. Why would anybody, knowing divorce is messy, would want to make it messy for you in court? Is it to punish you further? What?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, divorce is messy, period, like you said. And the difference between just a normal divorce and what I dealt with is a lot. We call it a high conflict divorce or high conflict legal situation. And so nobody knows that they're walking into that kind of situation, usually because in the beginning of every divorce or separation, everybody's angry. The difference is that in high conflict cases, that anger does not subside. So generally in normal divorce or separation, 4 to 6 months in, people start settling down, the bills are getting really high, and they're like, all right, we got to just move on with our lives and do what's fair and do what's best for the kids. And that's it, like, get us out of here. With high conflict case, when you're dealing with someone with a personality disorder and or an active addiction, they want the opposite of moving on. They want to keep engaging with you.
Yeah.
And so I always like to think of it as once they don't have that day to day, they're limited to three things: money, kids, and the court. And I always say the money and the court go hand in hand. And so they want to keep it going. And then the kids are the most painful. And so trying to turn the kids against you, which is the topic of our upcoming book, is something baked right into that sort of punishment. Yes, they want to punish you. They have what's called a clinging kind of hate. So they won't let go. And the rest of the world is like, why don't they just move on? They have a new partner. They have a new baby. It's been 8 years. It doesn't stop. We always say it's like you're having your own personal terrorist.
My God. Your testimony helped expand the legal definition of domestic violence. to include cohesive control. How would you explain cohesive control to someone who knows something isn't right but can't quite name it?
Okay. So often when we think of domestic violence, we think physical abuse.
Yeah.
And so that's something that people can see. And I know I thought the same thing. And we have a local domestic violence center in my head. I never considered going there because I was like, oh, that's for battered women. Even though there was physical abuse present in my situation, I minimized a lot. So coercive control is a lot of that invisible abuse that keeps you staying in the marriage or the relationship where you feel like you can't leave, where there's been a dependence that's been creative or not creative, created. So for example, emotional abuse where you're made to feel like this is the best you can do, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, making you feel like you can't function on your own, financial abuse, present in 99% of cases like these, where you can't leave because you don't have any money. Let's say you've been the one raising the kids or you're financially dependent on that person. That makes it extremely hard. Stalking, where it's like if you leave, they're going to be watching you no matter what. Cyber stalking, which is happening all the time, digital stalking, sexual abuse, that's a whole other thing. Legal abuse, which is what I dealt with, and something also called revenge porn, which is pretty interesting. And that's where the person says, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to publish sexual pictures of you. And it's not only going to embarrass you, it can ruin your reputation, affect your job, and especially affect your family and all of your relationships. So these are the things that kind of embody coercive control, where it's like there's this dependence that's been created in some way where you can't live as an independent human being. It's actually considered a crime of liberty in the United States of America because you can't leave. Like everybody should be able to live freely,
Right,
but you can't
exactly.
because you're dealing with this person who's making you feel like you can't.
Being in a relationship with the wrong person is like the biggest mistake anybody can make of their life, because then, and it's become a common topic of the day when you go on social media. Just when I was trying to set up this live on, so we are streaming live now on YouTube, which everybody can see you, and on TikTok they can just see only me. So if anybody wants to see Lisa, you have to jump onto our YouTube channel, and then you can see her, and you can leave questions for her to answer as well. Just when I was trying to set up, somebody was on there crying, saying, I don't deserve this. And you keep seeing videos of that pop up all the time. Most people are in relationships that are toxic, but they can't do anything about it. People go out with a smile on their faces, looking like it's all good. Any Anybody who is able to take the bold decision and step out of a toxic relationship, thinking of themselves first, to say, I want to be in the better position for myself to be able to support the children, I think is a massive thing to do. And for the other person, whoever it is, whether the man or the woman on the other side, trying to make it more difficult for them, I think that is inhumane. If if I put it right, because nobody deserves that. And I always say two people came together. Obviously, they came together at a point where there was a lot of love in the atmosphere. And at some point, based on one thing or the other, things didn't work out right. I would say sit down as two adults, discuss it, and let's move our separate ways rather than putting somebody in a very difficult situation. And to everybody listening to me who knows someone who's going through that difficult patch of life and you think they need to see this, please let them see, because Lisa, you put yourself forward as the beacon of light to a lot of people going through this, to know it's not the end of the world and they can make something out of their situation. I believe you've told this story a number of times in different ways on different platforms. How does that make you feel when you know you're not just sharing your story because you want to share it? You're sharing your experience because you believe someone listening to you might grab something out of it and make their lives better.
Oh my gosh, Sheila, that was like so much that you said in there. I started jotting down all these things that I wanted to respond to in terms of what you said. Okay. So, first of all, know that 1 in 2 people in abusive relationships don't even realize that it's abusive because abuse especially emotional and all of those things I mentioned that are not visible, happens slowly over time. Nobody starts dating showing that they're a horrible person, or they'd never be able to get someone into that relationship. So over time is how it appears. And it's also something that we don't realize. We gravitate towards what's familiar to us. So things aren't obvious at the beginning. And that's why half of us in those relationships don't realize it until significant things happen or somebody starts mentioning it. And that's a whole other conversation. The other thing is that it takes an average of 7 to 9 times to get out of an abusive relationship. I remember when my partner Chris and I first started doing Been There, Got Out, we used to do this thing. It was over COVID. Called detox talks, and we'd have people come from all over the world and just talk about what was going on if they had privacy. There was one woman in the UK who used to hold up a sign saying, "I can't talk." She would type stuff in because her partner was in the other room and they had been together for a long time. And after a couple months passed, she got in touch and she said, "I'm so happy. I'm finally getting out. I have the courage. I put down money on a 6-month lease for an apartment. It's got this beautiful garden." But guess what? She went back. She lost all that money. All of that. That was one of the 9 times to get out. So
Yeah.
it is very, very complex. And when you say that 2 people should sit down like adults, you have to keep in mind that when you're dealing with an abusive person, they're not an adult. They have had whatever issues from their childhood that have carried over into adulthood. So you're not dealing with an adult, you're dealing with a very frightened child who is angry and has all kinds of issues. So they can't be reasonable or logical because they're incapable of it. And I think the mistake that a lot of people make is thinking, well, you should be able to do it. And that's why people in these situations can feel even more alone, because the rest of the world is logical, going, well, why doesn't your ex just do what's best for the kids? Or why don't they just cooperate? Or why are they spending thousands of dollars to fight you in court? If they just paid what they owe, it would be better for everyone, because they're not logical. The other thing is, domestic violence, like these abusive relationships, affect 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men on average. So that's a lot of people. And like you said, most of the time people don't talk about it because they feel like they can't, because when they mention things to people, there's this judgment. Many of our clients are super successful. Many of them are highly educated. They're looked at as role models in their community. And if they mention something that's going on, the comments they often hear are, "Well, I never thought you would be so foolish to fall for someone like that. Why did you stay so long? What's wrong with you?" So that's why people stay quiet, because of all of that judgment. And so they can't. But keep in mind that the people who are targeted for these kinds of relationships, who are beating themselves up saying, "This is so horrible. I don't deserve this," like the person that was commenting just before this interview, the reason you're targeted is because you are so amazing. You're basically getting involved with a parasitic personality who's looking for somebody to make them look good, appear more successful,
Yeah.
appear richer, more creative, amazing. And so they go for the best and the brightest. We call our clients the shining stars. Like, they wouldn't have been drawn to you if you weren't responsible, beautiful, creative, like capable of doing so many things. So instead of feeling like, "Oh my gosh, I don't deserve this," yet you don't. But the reason that you're in it is because you are amazing. And it doesn't feel like that right now, because often you've lost your center among all kinds of other things. But once you get out, and it's a long, hard road for a lot of people to get out, you can get yourself back, but a better version, because you learn from things like this and you develop all kinds of survival skills that are going to make it, you're going to have a better life going forward, unless you feel hopeless. And that's why it's so important to get help and support from people who have been through it and are on the other side, and who are resolution focused and can get you through it. Because the more support you have, the better it's not only going to be for you, but for your children. This is how we
That's
start to prevent intergenerational trauma. But it really starts with you getting support. And the problem for a lot of people we work with is they've been the ones doing everything themselves, raising the kids, working, supporting the family, doing so much. And so we are less likely to ask for help because we feel like I can do it myself. But now's the time to
Yeah.
reach out and get help, because I'm telling you, you cannot do this yourself, and your kids deserve to have a parent that is as regulated as possible.
Hmm. When you were talking about do it yourself, I was having a conversation with somebody not too long ago, I think within the week, and I said, oh, when my daughter is of age, I'm going to tell her, even if you can do it yourself, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, because I sometimes I tend to find myself in that situation where my mom is a go-getter. She does it anyway. And I see that it radiates in the family. My sisters are like that. When I talk to them, my little sister is saying, I just do it, because that is what we saw mom do. So we do it. And it looks like sometimes when the men see you can do it, they just leave you to do it. And you realize in the end, you might have carried a lot, so much on your shoulders that it's beginning to break you. And at that point, when you're asking for help, it's as if they don't see it because they think, oh, you've been doing it, so you can do it, so carry on. But this is the point where I genuinely need help. The fact that I've been doing it for years and keep doing it doesn't mean that when I'm calling for help, I'm not genuine about it. So I was telling somebody, when my daughter is of age, I'm going to tell her, even if you have it, you don't have it. If you have the money, you don't have it. If you can do it, you can't do it. Because I believe it's the way you train your partner or your husband or the man. That is how it's going to carry on. So you can, but you hold on a little bit. So he can meet you halfway and not leave you to carry the load when it's getting really heavy along the line. Because it does get heavy. The load does just get heavy with time when you have a lot of things getting on your table and you need help. And when you're asking for it, you don't get it. So I like it when you put it in there over there. You often talk about legal abuse. What does legal abuse look like in real life? And why is it so difficult for people to recognize whilst they are in it?
Ugh, so that legal abuse, I always say, is fortunately and unfortunately my specialty, because that was all of those years in court. So that's a form of coercive control. I was stuck dealing with that, so it took time away from me being able to live my life. And there's different types of legal abuse. There's two main ones. So the first one is called vexatious or frivolous litigation. And
Mm.
that's something where you separate from your ex and they keep terrorizing you by filing all kinds of motions in court, usually that they're going to take the kids away from you or they're going to lower your support, basically leave you homeless, penniless, and childless. That's their main thing, is they want to punish you. So you're
Yes.
constantly having to hire attorneys or live with this sense of dread, like, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Every single time there's like some new motion, and now I have to stop what I'm doing, take time off from my job, maybe lose my job, run out of money, not be able to focus on my kids because I'm in court for some new, fresh hell. Then the other side is what I dealt with, which is when, like, my lawyer said my ex didn't comply with our orders and our agreements. And so I had the burden of taking him to court to try to enforce the orders. So for me, it took years because we had these orders. He had a lot of money. He kept hiring different lawyers who would distract. They'd come up with other issues. Then we had COVID. Then we moved the case into two different states. Then, after everything seemed all done, after 9 years, he filed a 4 million defamation suit against my partner and I, because it was like, I don't want to stop. Let's just keep it going. Let's keep bothering her. So I think he felt because I was getting our orders enforced, he had to come up with some new thing. So then Chris and I represented ourselves for that and got that thrown out. But that took another 7 months. And it was just like, leave us alone. And that's the thing that so many people don't understand. They're, why does your ex do this? I don't know, but I have to deal with that. So that's legal abuse. And it's just this constant sense of dread and overwhelm where you feel like whenever you open the mailbox, what if it's another order? Every time someone knocks on the door, what if it's a sheriff delivering a new motion? So you get a message, an email. Like, I remember looking and seeing, oh no, is it something from his lawyer? What's the next thing to drag this out? So that's basically what legal abuse means.
I don't know too much about the legal term and the legal system, but I'm thinking, can't can't the law see through him and see that he's just trying to make your life difficult? So let's put a stop to it. Can they not do that?
They could, but it takes so many times. It takes several patterns. And in America, people are allowed to be heard. So every time someone files a motion, if a judge just dismisses it, they can file an appeal. And if it says the judge didn't give me my opportunity, my freedom of speech to be heard, then that's not fair because that goes against our laws. So it takes like a number of times where like we always have our clients focus on someone's patterns of behavior. And that worked out for me, but it took years. It took, like I said, about 100 court appearances combined over all those 10 years. And also at the appellate court level, my ex filed 4 appeals. I was like, I'm not going to spend $15,000 for somebody to speak for 20 minutes for me. I was told you have to be really careful, Lisa. This is a big deal. It's the higher court. Um, but I represented myself, and in that hearing, I focused on legal abuse, and I said, this has gone on and on, all of these years and all of these motions. And then also when I went back to family court for something else, also focused on how many times this has been happening. And I did win the appeal, which in itself isn't that big of a deal because a lot of appeals don't succeed. But the thing that was so notable was that the case got published as case law for the state, which is a really big deal for an attorney. And it's unheard of for a self represented litigant. So I felt really, really proud of that because one of the things they noted in that decision was how just because someone doesn't agree, which is my ex just didn't agree with anything, they can't say that that's grounds for to overturn certain decisions. So that was really great.
Wow. Your upcoming book focuses on situations where an ex turns children against a parent. What would you say to a parent who feels they're losing their child and doesn't know what to do next?
Oh my gosh, big questions. And by the way, we just got a little cover of the upcoming book, When Your Ex
Oh,
Turns the Kids Against You. Yeah, it's coming out in on March 18th, but it's such a big topic. I think just like you said at the beginning, Sheila, about education. Education is everything. So knowing what to look for as it's happening. There's a lot that you can do outside of the legal system, but there's also things that you can do in the legal system. So in the legal system, because Chris and I are strategists for this issue, it's really important to get a very solid parenting plan. So that's going to be the constitution that you live by with your children. Because one of the first things that a difficult ex will do is not follow that parenting plan. They'll often try to cut your contact and communication. They'll make excuses that the kids don't want to see you. If you want to have very strong language in there that has consequences, not if they violate it, but when they violate it, what's going to happen, because you're going to be back before a judge or a mediator, say, look, it says right here, if this is happening, that this is what we do. And that's like a whole other topic about therapy and penalties and stuff. But in terms of outside of the legal system, which is what we also spend a lot of time on because we don't want our clients to have to go to court, is one of the things to really focus on with your children from a young age is to help them develop critical thinking skills,
yeah.
because this kind of behavior is a type of brainwashing. So certain children, even if they have a parent that's alienating them or trying to from the other parent, they are not as susceptible. So helping kids develop critical thinking skills, making them learn that it's okay to ask questions, even of adults, not that they shouldn't be obedient, but that if it feels like something is wrong, they should be able to question. So that's something. And then also there's all kinds of ways to establish um, stronger relationships with our children that make them less likely to fall prey to alienation. There's something called the 10-minute rule that I learned from a psychiatrist who works with kids from like 3 to 20. And she said that more than anything, kids want 2 things: control and attention,
Mm,
any age. So if you have 10 minutes when you are seeing your kid, because a lot of people don't see their kids that often during divorce, or, it's limited, to get on their level, whatever they're doing, and say, can you teach me what it is you're doing? I'm really interested in it. So let's say they're even playing a video game, and a lot of us parents are like, ugh, I don't want to do a video game with my kid. But if that's their passion, it's not about the video game. It's about you showing that you care about them as a human being, which is something that your ex is incapable of, because everything's about them. So showing that contrast and also showing your kid you care about them and that they can teach you something. And it doesn't have to be a video game, obviously. If they're good at cooking, oh my gosh, I love when you make those brownies. The house smells amazing. I'm terrible at cooking. Can you show me how you do this? It's time with your kid where they're leading you. And those are the memories that we remember much later as adults. So that's one of the best defenses against alienation.
Wow, that's beautiful. As you were saying it, I was just remembering my son. This is just to throw it in and just make some humor. And I remember I'm not an iPhone person. I've never been. I'm not a tech person really. And I heard people say that, oh, iPhone gives you best images when you use it in doing your content and all of that. So I got at the time, about 2 years ago, I got the latest iPhone at the time. When it came, I just couldn't figure it out. And I called my son, can you show me how to do that? He showed me. Then I said, I didn't get it. He showed me again the third time. I've shown you too many times. I can show you again. It's
Yeah,
like
but he
that.
probably loves it. He probably loves being the roles have changed, right? Like he's in charge and he's teaching you and you're like, I don't know.
So when you said that, it got me there thinking, oh, what if the child is like mine who say, oh, I've shown you too many times. I can't show you anymore. I'm tired. Ah. Anyway, but that was just to throw that in. But you and Chris support both men and women through high conflict situations. What have you learned about how abuse shows up across different people, regardless of gender?
We've learned that people minimize. Everybody minimizes it. They think mine's not that bad. There we have this weekly legal abuse support group, and I always say we do the very unusual thing in the domestic violence space, and that we blend our male and female clients together because we believe that abuse is a human issue, not a gender issue. And so, in that group, when we first started, there was a woman talking, and she she started off her turn by apologizing and saying, "Mine's not as bad as everyone else's, so I feel kind of stupid talking about it." Then she proceeded to tell us how her ex threw her out of a moving car.
That is serious.
I was like, yeah, you this is significant. This is that bad." So people tend to minimize it. The other thing is that I hate the gender wars with domestic violence where people say men are abusers and women are victims. Some of our
Mm,
most heartbreaking cases are our male clients. And in our culture and in many cultures, men are not believed when they are trying to be vulnerable because it's like, okay, if you're 6'3" and your wife is really tiny, how can you say that
yeah.
she's abusing you? Like, be a man, can't you handle your woman? That's why men don't talk. That's one of the reasons men don't talk is because of those expectations and also feeling like they're not going to be believed because look physically, but men often are like, I'm never going to hit a woman because if the police come, of course they're,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble no matter what. So men tend to be more silent. Men have less resources, unfortunately. That's one of my favorite things about our group is mixing them together because men are more comfortable talking, and I think it's important for women to hear that, especially with protective parents, like the good parent who really loves the kids. Men are just as scared as women. Men experience heartbreak when their kid is clinging to them, saying they're afraid to go with the other parent. So it's really important to see that perspective. And I'll never forget one of my favorite moments was where one of our male clients was talking about how he was really scared to be at the playground at his kids' school. He had young elementary school kids because his ex-wife would come up to him and start talking and he would get really, really uncomfortable and really scared. But as a man, he was like, there's nothing I can do because she's a woman, she's really involved with the school, and no one would think that she's harassing me. And one of our female clients was like, I know what to do. She goes, I've tried this myself. Um, and she goes, you have to practice, but put your hands up like this and say in a loud voice, now is not the time. Because if you do that and people turn and look at you, they'll see you going like this and they'll look at her and being like, why is she bothering you? And she
Yeah.
goes, you have to practice, but this is a way for you to physically get your voice back because a lot of us physically lose our voices when we're stressed out. It's like, it's hard to talk. So she said, it's really important to raise your voice and hold your hands up. And he was so excited and he tried it. And I felt like it was such a bonding experience and really helpful for anyone to talk about how to use our bodies to protect ourselves, but not seem fake or anything like that.
Oh, that's a good one there. Looking back now, how did surviving such an intense personal battle shape who you are today, not just professionally, but as a person?
A lot of ways. I mean, first of all, when I was still in my 20-year relationship, I thought the worst thing would be to end it, to get divorced. My parents have been married now for like 60 something years. No one in my family was divorced, and my ex knew that that was my biggest fear, and he would say, "If you divorce me, you're going to ruin our kids' lives." And I internalized that. Like I truly believed it, and that's why it took 2 years and trying everything to keep this family intact. I thought that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And when I finally realized that it was more painful to stay in the marriage and took that leap off the high diving board and said, "I am done. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I have a feeling I'm gonna be okay," because 'cause I've been doing a lot of work in those 2 years. Um, we did it, and things were so much better. So much better. I mean, literally the air changed once he and I were not in the same living space. I had no idea what I was in for, but learning to deal with that along the way, and especially being pro se or representing myself, was tremendous. I mean, I was like a really shy kid. My background is as a high school English teacher. That was a big challenge also, to get in front of a group of teenagers and teach was like, ugh, worst nightmare, but I did it. And I felt like court was a similar challenge where he had all kinds of attorneys. He had a criminal defense attorney. It was like, it was super aggressive, that used to bully me all the time. He had other attorneys that would be more passive bullies, and learning how to effectively deal with that, and also use my skills as a writer and as a teacher in terms of persuading people to do what I needed to be done and why I was entitled to those things, was amazing in terms of triumphing. And when my case got published as case law, and everybody around me was like, "I've never heard of that. Like that's such a big deal." It was like, I didn't plan for that. I didn't want to go through all this stuff, but I learned that maybe there was a reason for it. And I feel like it's made me so good at my job, at my career, because I have radical empathy. I lived for 10 years feeling rage and injustice and despair, like this was never going to get better and it's so unfair. And how could anybody have to go through all of these years of this stuff? And it's not fair, but as you go along it, or as I did, I had so many little triumphs also that it changed me as a person. It made me a lot more confident. And especially in terms of my work, like I am an authority in what I do. Even if it were just like the education background, that's great. But all of those years, I say I got my best education in the trenches. So it was horrible, but it was also amazing at the same time. It was like someone running a marathon. And I remember one of my kids at some point was like, "Mom, you don't, like you can stop now. Like we'll be okay with the money. It's okay." And I was like, "No, no, I'm not stopping. I'm gonna see this through." And when I saw it through and I had like more victories and more triumphs, it was like, wow, it was horrible, but I got so much personally out of it in terms of developing that confidence and feeling that authority, getting that authority to do what I do now.
Right. I know a lot of people are in a place in their relationships where they're struggling and figuring out, is this for me? Am I supposed to be here? Most people wish they can step out, but they're thinking of the children. How is it going to affect them? What's life going to be? Because we are all afraid of the unknown, what's out there. And usually, what we're used to we feel it keeps us safe. It might not be. So if somebody is listening to you today and is thinking, I wish I could step out because it's getting toxic in here. It's affecting my way of life, it's affecting my personality, it's affecting my output in on all levels. What can they do to get themselves closer to making that decision if it's not right for them?
Okay, and there's millions of people feeling that way right
Yeah.
now. Um, so think back to what I said about that line my ex used against me, in that if you divorce me, you're going to ruin our kids' lives because you're breaking up the family. When you are in an unhealthy relationship and you have children, and you think that staying in it is keeping you safe and keeping them safe, it's actually the opposite. So first of all, when kids live in a home where domestic violence is present, I'm not talking about just physical because we went through all the different types. They can feel that energy, and it's like a war zone. It's worse than a war zone because home is supposed to be the place that you feel safe. So you've basically created this war zone where there's nowhere for them to turn. They don't want to go home because that's what they have. But what's worse than that is that, like I said earlier, we gravitate towards what's familiar. So if you're having this difficult, terrible relationship, your kids are thinking, not only is this familiar, this is normal, and this is what I'm going to be drawn to, this kind of dynamic. So you're teaching your kids that this is what they are supposed to have. This is the best they're going to get when they're older. You're modeling terrible behavior. And yes, it is incredibly difficult to get out. But if you want to stop the cycle, you have to get out. You cannot stay in one of these relationships with children and think that somehow your kids are going to do differently. They're not. They're going to model what you're doing. So I think that's like a powerful thing to swallow is as long as you stay, you're training your kids to be in the same relationship as what they live with.
Wow. For someone listening right now who feels exhausted, fearful of court or losing, I think I just framed this one in my last question. Is there anything that you'd like to say as we wrap up for our listeners before we leave?
Yeah. So we all know, and I've been there, like absolutely terrified myself, and know that if I seem strong or confident, it wasn't like that. I spent years feeling like I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, having like a physical ball of pain in my stomach that I would wake up and be like, if I could just not feel horrible. Couldn't get out of bed sometimes. It'd be a spring break for the kids. I remember being like, just go ride your bikes. Like I can't even function.
Yeah.
So, so bad. But that decision was really hard. That was one of the hardest decisions ever. It was 20 years of my life. It was half my life nearly at the time. But once I got out, I met the love of my life. Chris and I have been together for almost 11 years now. I found this incredible career that I feel like I was made for that combines all kinds of experience in the past, plus the education in the trenches. That I can't imagine doing anything else because I love what we do. It is the most rewarding career ever. I get to work with the biggest sweetie pies on the planet because all of them were targets for abusers who are like amazing, amazing, amazing. So just know that maybe there's a reason that you are going through this, not that you deserve it, but maybe it's some kind of life lesson that's a challenge for you to make a decision. But it is so much better on the other side. It doesn't feel like it, and it's going to be a really rough road, and there's people out there that can help support you, but you don't deserve to be with someone that disrespects you. Nobody
Beautiful.
deserves that. We
Yeah.
have this life. Like, don't just fritter it away thinking that this is the best you're going to do. You could do better.
I think you said it all beautifully. And if anybody jumps on this recording or this video after the live, they're going to learn a lot and tons of things from it. If you happen to be listening and you know somebody who is going through such a rough patch, please help us share this video with them because I know it's going to be a blessing as it has been to all of us. Thank you very much, Lisa, for coming on Podcast with Sheila today.
Oh, my pleasure, Sheila. Thank you so much for letting me talk about this issue because a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
It's a difficult topic. It's a very difficult topic, and I know that a lot of people are going through it because you see the stories on social media. You see what people are saying. A lot of women. There is a new term that is coming: married but single. A lot of women are married but living single, difficult lives, and those topics cannot be talked about. And when you say it, it's as if you're talking too much, especially in families and all. He said, you're talking too much. Oh, just get on with it. Take care of your children and move on. Forget about it. It's not that easy when
No.
people pass comments like, just get on. Why? What you don't need, what do you need him for? Just get on and work hard and take care of your children and just move on. And sometimes I listen to some of these comments and I'm thinking, how hard? can anybody be working anymore? And it takes two people to have children. Why should it always be one person having to carry the load? And I think about all of these things, and I think some of these um, lazy comments have been left to live in the world, which isn't healthy and is affecting a lot of people, where people must be encouraged to sit up and own up to their responsibilities and what they have to do and do it right and make everybody feel safe in their space. And I always live by one golden rule, that what you don't want anybody to do to you, don't do it to the other person. Because if we were going by that rule, I think the world would be a much better place than it is now.
Yeah, you just made me think of another quote before you said that, which is when instead of asking, and this was about a woman in particular, instead of asking a woman, why didn't you just leave? Why don't you ask her how many people told her to stay?
Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. Somebody told me, her mom said, "Oh, your friends may be telling you just leave him and move on. Don't, because there is no better man out there."
See, that's the thing. That's basically echoing exactly what your
Yeah,
partner
yeah,
who's not healthy is telling you. That's why so many people stay in these relationships, women and men as well.
yeah. Yeah. So thank you very much, Lisa, for being bold enough to share your stories, because this is a difficult topic and nobody shares it easily. So for people like you is an encouragement to a lot of us women, knowing that if we are in a place where it's not safe, if you've been able to do it, we can do it if we want to. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 143 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring life stories to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Subscribe and be notified anytime a new episode is released. Whilst at it, please drop us a rating. Our prayer for you this week is that you become an advocate and a lover of peace. Remember, change begins with you. Until we meet again, have a brilliant week. Bye. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.